everyone. Welcome to another episode of Leadership Simplified. My name is Rochelle Rungta and I'm a student at Temasek Primary School. As the head prefect of my school currently, I'm always looking for ways to improve my leadership skills. Hence, Leadership Simplified is my attempt to chat with leaders from different walks of life and learn from their experiences. I'm delighted to welcome my guest for today, Mr. Aaron Tan. He is the founder of Carro, which is Southeast Asia's largest marketplace for cars and Singapore's latest unicorn. Mr. Aaron Tan recently received the ITMA Future IT Leader Award, which is just one of his many personal accomplishments. Hello, Mr. Tan. How would you like me to address you?
Yeah, just call me Aaron. The Tan, both are fine. I'm easy.
Okay, sure. Thank you very much for taking out time for this interview. How are you doing today?
Well, I guess it's for me it's a day in the life of my own self, so to speak, right? For me, it is non-stop meetings pretty much starting from 7 a.m. Until pretty much late at night because we have investors from all over the world, right? So for me, today is just like any other day whereby I'm just having back-to-back meetings pretty much.
Okay, sure. So without further ado, let me begin. I'm buzzing with excitement to ask you many questions. And so let me get started with your teens. You were curious about Yahoo, so you went to a library, picked up a book, and tried to understand how to build a search engine. And almost like magic, before you turned 18, you had already created and sold 2 companies. How did this happen? My parents and teachers have always told me the importance of being curious. I would love to hear more from you on this.
No, so I started my first company when I was 13, and when I started my first company, it was because, to your point, right, I was very curious about programming, right, and for that matter, I was even more interested to know how do I go about building my own search engines and stuff like that. So that really was what sparked my curiosity, and that broadly was why I decided that, hey, you know what, I should go to the library to borrow a book and learn, right? Because ultimately, I had this engineering blood in me, so to speak, right? I just like to build things myself. And when I was young, when I was your age, I was effectively tearing things apart, right? So when the clock is not working, when the car is not working, or any of the different parts are not working, I probably 90% of the time I would tear it apart and understand what the hell is going on there and try to understand how to fix it. And of course, 99% of the time I didn't manage to fix it, but I still learn, right? I learn about the circuitry, components, electricals, and everything I can get my hands on. And that's why I always love tinkering. And when I was 13, again, my first search engine that I saw was this company called Yahoo, which most of you would know. But when I saw Yahoo, the first thing I thought myself is I want to build a Yahoo, right? And that's also the main reason why I started researching on how to do programming. And one thing led to another, and then I just somehow ended up being a CEO, rather a founder of a company. I wouldn't dare say call myself a CEO, because when I first started my company when I was like 13, 14 years old, I didn't really have anybody to work for me. So it wasn't until like 15 or 16 years old before I had my first employee, before I could call myself the CEO of a company, right? But that broadly is how the company got started and how we got founded and stuff like that.
That is indeed very interesting, Aaron, and I will be entering my teens soon, and looks like I have very little time to come up with an idea as good as yours. So now on to my second question. At an SMU event in 2018, you mentioned that don't be shy to speak up. My school teachers keep reiterating this message to us, and can you share with us how speaking up has helped you in your career?
Well, I think the long and short of this is that, first of all, I must say that you have done a lot of research. Good job, because I don't remember saying that, but that sounds like something that I would say. But I think at the end of the day, it is all about being standing out from everybody, right? In a class of 100, in a class of 1,000, how do you stand out? And you stand out by being different. You stand out by being vocal. And of course, vocal for the right reasons, right? And similarly, in any businesses that we do, we have to stand out. If no businesses is what in strategy word we call it blue ocean, right? I mean, or for that matter, no businesses is the green field, right? Whereby there's no competition, you're coming in empty and different. Right? So the long and short of this is that we have to be very clear about how do we differentiate ourselves. And come back to this, for myself, I look at this as like a very important thing as we move along the way. Yeah. So so I think that's what I would say.
I completely agree with your points, and I also feel that being unique and being different from the rest is also important. And I also believe that one must always express his thoughts and never shy away from speaking out. So moving forward, when investing in startups, your strongest emphasis is always on the founding teams. In the case of your own company, you thrive on the camaraderie that comes with the team working towards a common goal. So why is the team so important to you?
I always say this, right? Which is, if you start a company, the company is never about yourself, right? The company is the company, so to speak. And the word company really means more than one individual, right? Otherwise, how do you have a company, right? So for that matter, for me, really, it is more than yourself as a CEO. Of course, you're at the top of the whole food chain, so to speak, right? But it is more important to recognize that without your COO, your CFO, your C whatever, or even down to your sales call center people, or even your mechanics in our case, you will not have a company, right? So, and that's why it is very important for us to understand that, hey, we have to recognize our people, and as a result, when you start a company, it is more critical than not that you have to have a strong team. You have to have, what they call camaraderie, right? Whereby everybody looks out for each other, everybody helps each other out. I think the most important point at the end of the day is that, as an individual ourselves, we all have shortcomings, right? We all have, myself included. I mean, I'm not going to tell you what are my shortcomings because there are quite a lot. But let's just say that, that's why you have a team. That's why you have comrades, right? That's why you have people that reinforces your belief, that reinforces yourself, that basically help you reach, your goals sooner rather than later. And we do this as a team, and as a team of people that is united against a particular belief, i.e. in this case, a company, right? Or listing a company overall. Yeah. So very important.
You have a very valid point there, Aaron. And I too work closely with my team at school, the prefects as well as my teachers. And listening to what you are saying about, even each and every one of us has shortcomings, and that's why we have a team, even when it comes to projects or like a big company. So I should continue to focus on teamwork. Next.
You should definitely do that. And, I cannot stress the importance of it because, as an investor myself, one of the many things that we always look at is the team. When we do venture investing and as an investor ourselves, right, we always look at the team. It's never about, okay, there's a rock star founder, or there's a rock star, guy in the company, rock star engineer, stuff like that. Great. He can be a rock star engineer. He can build the best, Facebook, Google algorithms, stuff and whatnot. But can he run a company? Can he manage the company? And most often than not, we realize that not everybody is perfect, i.e. they cannot do everything. And even if they can do everything, they can't do everything in that sense, right? Because even if they are really very, very skilled, there's only 24 hours a day, right? And that's where the team is super important. And the team is what that will set any companies apart. And a good friend of mine is the founder of Hungry Go Where. And that was something that I always remember when I asked him, how was it like when you founded Hungry Go Where? Because it was very tough times. This was like, mind you, more than 20 years ago. All right. And for him, it was the team that kept him going. It was the team that actually ensured the success eventually of Hungry Go Where. Yeah. So net, it is the team. Very important.
I completely agree. So now on to my fourth question. I also know that Carro recognizes the importance of trust. which has played a big part in the success of your business. What makes trust so vital? What is your opinion?
Well, trust is super important when it comes to any other business that is about brand building. Right? Actually, it doesn't really matter. Most businesses, I wouldn't dare say all, but in a lot of business, trust is the single most important reason why anyone would buy anything from you, right? Be it if you're a clinic, right? You're providing a service. Now, if your clinic doesn't resemble or look like something that's trustworthy, if the doctors didn't display his certs down there, would you enter the clinic? Will you do that? No, right? And similarly, if your car breaks down, the first thing you do is that, hey, I know any mechanic that I trust, that I go in, right, to go and repair the car and stuff like that. So if you think about this, trust at the end of the day is a very intangible item, but yet very important item in anything you do, especially in business, right? Because trust is everything. So for us, if I were to just add on to that, it's not really trust, but it's the brand, right? It's the awareness of the brand that creates trust. And trust is not something that we can build overnight. It's not something that, okay, let's invest $10 million into trust. What does that mean? It means nothing. It really means nothing, right? So, how do you build trust? Well, I get asked this question all the time, actually. How do I build trust? And I always say this, trust cannot be bought. Trust is something that you need to build over time. Trust is a brand. Trust is something that you need to build upon hundreds, if not thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of customers that are satisfied, they are happy, they give you what we call good net promoter scores, NPS, right? And they will tell other friends, hey, Rochelle, you know what? I had a good experience with Dr. Anywhere. Please go and use it. I had a good experience with Carro. Please go and use it. And that is how you build trust literally on tens and thousands of good customers, satisfied customers. That's how you build trust.
Very true. I think in simpler terms, you mean trust cannot be bought, but it has to be earned. And there have been times that I have actually tilted towards almost not trusting my team members, but then realization hits me that would only cause harm. And by gaining trust from others and trusting others, I only saw benefits. So I completely agree with your point. So moving forward, they say success does not come easy. Carro is a very successful company today, but I'm sure that you have faced many hurdles along the way to the top. So how have you dealt with these challenges, and did you ever feel like giving up?
I mean, do I ever feel like giving up? The long and short of this is no, because I believe I'm a fighter in that sense, because I would never say no to challenges. Right? To me, it's like, there's a challenge, no problem. Let's go and think about how to overcome that. Right? And that's the kind of person I am. Right? At the end of the day, when I think about problems and challenges, I never think about let's take the easy way out. I need to give up. Right? And for me, it's really this at least motivation that I have internally to believe that I can do it. All right, and more importantly, that I want to do it and I want to be different. Right? I want to set myself up. I want to set myself up for success. And that's the reason why I'm consistently, at least that's my own internal mantra, right? It's very important that, we don't give up, and we don't give up easily. But of course, there is also sometimes stupidity, right? Whereby, you know that the battle cannot be won. But yet, at the same time, you just stupidly do things a certain way, right? And I think the net of this is that when we think about battles and stuff like that, we should always try to make sure that we win it. Any challenges, try to overcome this. But that is not to say that, when the writing is on the wall, it's also sometimes important to know when is it the right time to give up, right? Because there's always two sides to the coin.
I'm going to definitely remember your words whenever I find myself in a tough situation, and it will give me some encouragement as it reminds me that, whenever a challenge is posed, you should always take on the challenge with a positive mindset and never just give up because you're in a tough situation.
Exactly.
So now on to my sixth question, which has two parts. So while the list of both your personal and professional accomplishments is endless, I have two questions related to this. A, did this ever make you complacent or arrogant, and how did you deal with so much success? And B, despite having achieved so much, you recently made a comment that Carro has room to grow 50 times from where it is right now. And I'm really curious to know what makes leaders like you continuously set such high ambitions.
Yeah, I mean the net of this is the first question. The first question really is what was the first question again? Sorry.
Like when you achieved so much, did it?
Arrogance. Yeah. So on the first question on arrogance, the truth is that I guess there were some parts of me that was arrogant, so to speak, when I was younger, especially when I was in my teens. Probably slightly older than yourself, whereby I would have already earned like tens of thousands of dollars a month. I was probably making well more than what my teachers did in school, but that's besides the point, right? But I guess I was definitely not someone that would say that that is pleasant to hear and stuff like that in that sense, right? So I think in my younger days I was definitely a lot more arrogant, and I recognize that. I think that's by default because of the fact that I had some level of early success, right? Because by the time I was 20, I was in the world number 3. By the time I was 19, I was like world number 1. Singapore number 1 in programming and stuff like that, right? So I think I had reasons to be arrogant, so to speak, right? But I guess after you grow up, at 20, 21 years old, especially what was most humbling was during my time in the Ministry of Defense before I got my scholarship. It was very clear to me that, hey, you know what? The Chinese would say is 人天外有天人， right? So what this basically means is that there will always be someone better than yourself.
Yes.
There will always be someone that is smarter than yourself. And I saw that for my own eyes when I was studying in the United States at Carnegie Mellon, and mind you, it's one of the top schools in computer science. I met people. I met really smart people who are really geniuses, whereby they will ask me, why are you using this particular library, what we call math.random, right? Because then I say, isn't that normal, right? And then he'll say, no, because math.random is not random enough. It is susceptible to hacks. It is susceptible to attacks by hackers. And this you are basically not good enough. That's what they told me. Right? And that was where I guess, when I was 21, 22, 23, studying in the US, it suddenly occurred to me that, hey, you know what? I'm actually not that great, not that good, so to speak. Right? I'm not too bad, but I would dare say that there are a lot of people around me that's better. So I think, after I was in my 20, 21 onwards, I guess I tend to be more grounded. I tend to be more down to earth, so to speak. And I think arrogance is something that you will have it, I guess, over time, once you have enjoyed tremendous amounts of success or rather wins, right, when you were younger. I wouldn't say success is really early. But yeah, so I think that's on the first part of the story. Right. And the second part, what was the question about?
The question was that despite having achieved so much, you made a comment that Carro has to grow 50
times. All right. Well, look, I know for a fact that the market is huge, right? I do not know about other companies and I cannot comment about that. But I do know one thing, which the automotive industry is big. In fact, it's $1 trillion vertical by itself. And that basically, in other words, means that we have a lot of room to grow, right? If you think about this, we have all the reasons to win and all the reasons to grow, right? So the net of this is that I mean, it's as much that I believe that to grow 50 times, but I believe that the market has room to grow 50 times at least over the next few years. And it has nothing to do too much again to me as CEO of the company to say that, hey, let's go 50 times. It's not that. It has nothing to do with that. In fact, it is really just simply because of the fact that the market is huge. The company is still early. We have a lot of potential.
Okay, so for the first part, I think what you mentioned was very relatable to what I experienced, because I also believe that, when people are young or just entering their teens, they like to have that feeling of competence. Like, what I'm meaning to say is one likes to be better than the rest. And I also experienced that. But then again, even my school teaches me that like one of our school values is humility. So no matter what our accomplishments are, we must always be humble. And I think that humbleness develops over time. And for the second part, I think are you essentially saying that you must always have that fire in your belly and always want to do better? Is that what you're like trying to say, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
In
Because
some sense.
I heard my parents say this to me, but after hearing your comments, I probably understand it much better.
Yeah.
So on to my final question. And my final question to you is this. You gained some valuable experiences in your preteen years, and in one of your interviews, you mentioned that a lot of what you learned those days is still very applicable today. And what, according to you, should children in my age group be doing to maximize their learning?
Well, I think the children your age at about 12, I think what I would recommend really is to be curious about things, right? It's about, tearing things apart. If you look at something, why is it not working? What you should be doing is to ask yourself, why is it done like this? How can you do better, right? Because it's one thing about looking at things and say that, okay, this is not even how it works. This works, by pressing the button. No. And for me, it's really about this continuous curiosity about life, right? It's about everything that you see, be it the toaster ovens. I actually personally do all kinds of stuff, right? Ranging from building my own swimming pool to building cars and stuff like that. I actually learn about such things. And sometimes it is also about understanding that there's a lot of knowledge. And I think people at your generation is super lucky in the sense that, in my days, right, in my early days in my life, the truth is that even if you're trying to learn programming, if you're trying to learn this and learn that, it's not something that you can just learn from the internet, because the internet at that point in time is still very much the data and information is not easily gathered. Right? So I think these days, given the abundance of information, the abundance of YouTube and stuff like that. And by the way, I YouTube a lot, right? When it comes to I have a friend, for instance, that's in Kenya. He's a mechanical engineer, but you know what? He took over his father's business, and then he needed to learn how to operate a cement mixer. All right, and that's not something that you can just learn overnight. There was nobody in Africa that can teach him that. Right. So what he did was that he went to YouTube, and I kid you not, he downloaded an ebook and then learned how to operate a cement mixer, built the building from scratch, and then realized that, hey, you know what? The building doesn't hold. Let's tear the building down and rebuild it again. Stuff like that, right? So it's really this continuous. If I were at this age, this continuous exploration of life, this curiosity to everything that you do, is what I would recommend that everybody, when they are 13 or 12 years old, at your age, should be doing, right? Being curious about life.
Those are really amazing words of wisdom, which will stay with me forever. And I'm sure there will definitely be other children who will benefit from this as well. And that brings us to the end of this session. Thank you very much, Mr. Aaron, for sharing your views and experiences. It has been a pleasure talking to you.
No problem. Anyway, have a good day, and then tell her that I say hi.
Okay, sure.
All right.
So that's all for now. Thank you everyone for listening in. I hope you found it interesting, and I look forward to your likes and feedback. Goodbye.